Okay, I put in the definition of racism. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So the reason why I'm doing this video, it says the problem with being honest about racism when you're black. I'm doing this video because there was a 9-year-old child who was accused of sexual assault by a white woman. And if you look at some of the things that have happened in history, whenever a white woman screams rape or hollers that some black man or some black person touched them, it's really, really serious. It's viewed as something really, really serious. And people have lost their lives, been incarcerated, or even worse, behind being falsely accused of something they didn't do. And it's not only that incident, it's a multiple of incidences that have been happening all throughout America, where the cops are called on black people. And I believe the reason why, and I did a video that the reason why I believe that it's happening, there's lots of reasons, but it all stems from racism. And I believe that these people know that the police, some of the police officers sometimes will have racial bias against black people. And so when they call the police on black people, they're hoping that another black person is murdered, because a lot of the media has shown where a lot of these officers who have been in altercations or they've been in incidences where they've murdered black people, they've been exonerated, or there's an excuse that has been made for them to get them off of jail time, prison time. And so there's been so many protests and there's been so much complaining, and a lot of people that have been shaken by all of this, where now we're now starting to see where some of these officers are not being given, a pass. They have now started to slowly turn the tide in terms of exonerating these officers. They've been really diligent now, I will say that, about trying to look into the matters, because there's been so many people that have been so hurt or so enraged by the display of racism. I don't know how else to say it. If I say it another way, it really doesn't, resonate, I don't believe. And I believe a lot of this is coming from racism. I believe a lot of the things that have happened to black people who have had experiences that have been negative with police officers when it comes to being accused of things they haven't really done, and such as, having the police called on you for things that aren't really matters that you would call a law enforcement for. I believe that a lot of that it's just plain old racism. And there's a lot of people who, even though they live amongst one another, they're not able to get along with people who they feel look different or of a different background or culture than they are. And so I myself have run into people like that on multiple occasions, even in the workplace. And so Racism is it's prejudice, discrimination, antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on beliefs that one's own race is superior. And I think that's probably the most important part of this description of racism. I believe that there are people who feel or whom feel that they're better than others because of their skin color or because of what they possess material wise, wealth. And a lot of those people didn't all make it honestly to the top. A lot of times they've done a lot of bad things to other people to get to a status, and they just haven't been caught, or they hadn't been exposed for the wrongdoings that they've done over probably many years, because they've been given a pass to pretty much exploit people or blackmail people, hurt people, threaten people, fire people, make people feel like they're beneath them. And there are people that are out there that's their whole persona. And sometimes they're so good at lying, they think you owe them an apology. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that the 9-year-old boy, the black boy who was accused falsely of touching a white woman in a grocery store, that they were trying to force him to apologize or to accept the woman's apology as if he owed her something. Now, I don't know if people recall this, but there's many incidences where that type of similar thing happened to black males or young black males, and they were murdered and beaten and tortured viciously for a crime they did never commit. And one in particular that is historical is Emmett Till. And so the way the police has been lately with, you never know, like I've said, there's some cops that it's unpredictable. You don't know which cop it's going to be. They have a tendency to be pretty trigger happy. And let's suppose if it went a whole nother way and she called law enforcement and they wanted to handcuff the boy and, or question him. And what if he had have gotten killed? So I really do understand where that child's mindset is. He was traumatized by that whole incident. When you saw where he was out of the store and he was with his mother and he was crying frantically and he was in fear. You're 9 years old and a woman is accusing you of sexual assault, and then they call law enforcement. And I'm sure these kids are smart. They see on the news police officers killing black people and gunning them down and not being held accountable for it. And very few have had to actually be held accountable for it. Even though some have had to do time, or they're facing, more recently there was one, they said he was facing murder charges. You have his legal team. This one officer, he killed a black boy, and it was very recent, this issue that had came out, and they said his legal team was seeking a repeal. They were seeking a repeal because they are going to give this officer manslaughter. And I believe it's the officer that shot at the 17-year-old black teenager, I think it was 16 times. And he claimed that the teenager was coming at him, lunging at him. And when you see in the video cam, you see the teenager was walking away from the police officers. He wasn't coming at the police officers. And it doesn't even sound, the story doesn't even sound right. Police officers that have guns, and this kid, he has a knife. He's running away from the police officers because a knife is no match for a gun. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that, logically, So, they make up stories to get people in trouble and murder people. And that's what's been happening with the phone calling. And I also added in there, I believe that it's motivated because of the president that we have. Some of these people feel that they can be bolder now with their prejudice and discrimination. And so they feel that this is their time to vent and to display just how mean-spirited they really are. And so they no longer hide it. And, like what I've learned from family members that have come from the South, that in the South, a lot of times what side of the neighborhood to be in, when to be in before a certain time, and what places to frequent and what places not to frequent, and which places to drive and what places not to drive, even though laws and time is supposedly changed where people are supposed to be more inclusive. You still feel that feeling even if you go to the South, in some places that, some things are never going to be accepted, no matter what people are saying and doing, on TV, because it's just TV. But that same old hateful racism is still out there. And a lot of these people grew up in households where their parents have done some horrible things to Black people, and they felt that it was okay to do this. And so they grew up in a household like that, and they learned those traits, they learned those ways, and they grew up to become everything that their parents were. And they exhibited in ways where it's a little bit more, I would say, evolved, where it's dressed up. And, they might be your manager, they could be a lead instructor, they could be the boss of something, and they know how to talk, they know how to lie, they know how to manipulate things, they know how to gain a repertoire. And if they've been given a job, they keep that and hold that position no matter how they've hurt people. And they seem to continue on. They're never written up. They're never fired. They're never disciplined to where it's written on their record that they have a history of discriminating others. On that application, in these places where these people are, the bosses or the managers, a lot of times they'll say, we're an equal opportunity employer, and, we do not discriminate people of color and people of different races and backgrounds and creeds and religions and what have you. But that is words that are on a piece of paper, and it means nothing, absolutely nothing, when you work at these places. Because when you work at these places, everything they say that they don't do to people is what they're doing. And, they even put in there, we don't tolerate, we have zero tolerance for sexual harassment, or we don't tolerate. It happens. it's still, these things are still happening, even when they have those words on that application saying that they're not supposed to do that. That is everything that they are doing at these places of, employment. And out in the public, they just display what kind of people they are. And so they're not under, a watchful eye. Like that even matters, because they're allowed to do what they want to do at these workplaces or work sites. And when they get off the clock, they can just let their hair down and just full throttle be themselves. Hateful, mean-spirited, prejudiced, discriminative, a sexual predator, whatever it is that they claim that they're not doing is what they're doing. And I know this to be true. I've experienced it, and I've seen other people experience it. And the problem with Black people, some are afraid to speak out because they don't feel like people will believe them. And the reason why that is, and I'm going to say this, is because we are viewed as not honest or liars or criminals. And so if we've already got a bias set up against us, you don't feel like you're going to be supported. You don't feel like people are going to be honest and they're going to hear your side of the story and listen to you and take you serious. They're going to listen to the white woman, or they're going to listen to the white guy because he looks honest and he looks like he's going to tell the truth. But the Black person, oh no, we can't listen to them because they are going to fabricate the story, or they're going to exaggerate the story, and they're not going to be honest and tell the truth. And the problem with a lot of this is when people don't come forward, just like in sexual abuse or sexual assault, there are many people that have been assaulted, sexually abused, or they've been racially discriminated, or they've been mistreated. And when people don't come forward, that gives that person who's been doing this a pass to continue doing what they've been doing to people, in which is extremely wrong, or it is against company policy, or it is not, it's not ethical, it's just not right. And it's caused a lot of pain, grief. It's caused people to lose their livelihood, their jobs. It's caused emotional stress and a lot of pain, sometimes physical. And so this is the kind of thing that has happened, and it continues to happen over and over and over again. And when a person finally stands up and speaks out on issues, they're told to be quiet, or they're sent death threats, or they're told that they're liars, they're not telling the truth, or what did they do to deserve it? And this is why women for a long time couldn't come forward and speak out on issues of sexual harassment on the job. And that's still, even today, still, it's hard, because if everybody likes the boss and everybody listens to the boss and everybody's afraid of the boss, who's going to stand up against the boss? Who's going to speak out against the lead teacher? Who's going to stand up and expose the prejudice that goes on in school districts? Yeah, I'm going to say it. And a lot of times, even in the school districts, there's prejudice. And the reason I'm saying this is because there are school districts where they only hire teachers that look white, or they are white. And they don't hire Black teachers. And if they have a Black teacher, they have you could count on one hand, or you could count on 10 fingers, how many certified Black teachers there are in some of the school districts here in California. And a lot of that is because they discriminate, and they use some of the same things that we see happening on the media that people are like awe and shock over. These things have always been going on. It's just now we have these new technologies where you can actually see it, and it is filmed or photographed. That's all it is. And the same goes with sexual harassment on these jobs. It's been long going on. It has gone on for quite a while, maybe longer than what I'm saying. And so a lot of people are afraid because that might be the only job that they have. They can't get a recommendation from that job because they're trapped there, or at least they feel that way, because the people that they are relying on giving them recommendations so that they can move on are the very people who have exhibited prejudice, discrimination, or they've sexually harassed them, or they've made them feel like they don't have any way out. And you feel as though you have to get a lawyer. But then with getting a lawyer would mean you have to expose that school district or that company or that establishment. And then that would open up a whole can of worms, because you would find out that thinking that you're the only one that's being discriminated or sexually harassed, there's been a history of it. Others that have had the same treatment, and they felt betrayed or belittled, or they had lost their job. They didn't have enough support to fight against the evil that goes on in some of these workplaces. And so they feel unprotected. And so that is the reason why you'll have some Black people who won't even speak out because of the fear of not being believed or trusted. And a lot of times the people you got to go through to get answers from, they themselves are also in cahoots with the same type of mentality of being prejudiced. Because I know there's some people that is going to find this, maybe some people won't, but then there's some that will find this complicated, of a situation. But there are some people that exhibit racism in different ways. And just because you're not wielding a gun and you're not shackling someone or holding them captive, beating up someone, doesn't mean that you're a nice person if you are prejudiced and discriminative and racist. You can do things in ways where you don't have to touch that individual, but you're touching them emotionally. You might be damaging their life by your words or what you write on paper to get them fired, or to make them look bad, or to call someone and say negative things about them so that they don't have any credibility wherever they decide to go to another workplace because they feel that they've been treated unfair. And so a lot of this happens, and people don't want to hear the truth. And a lot of times that's why also people won't come forward and speak, because when you start telling the truth about things, they want to silence you. They want to belittle you. They want to call you names, or they want to threaten you, or they want to figure out how to make your words sound meaningless when they're meaning a lot. People who want to be in power want to stay in power. So in order to stay in power, you don't play fair at all. you're not kind and you're not compassionate and you're very brutal. And there's ways of being brutal where you don't actually have to put your hands on someone. You can, say something about a person and get them fired. You could say something about a person and cause them to not be accepted for a job promotion. You can put something in writing, or you could tell somebody something that will cause another person to think that this person's character is really bad. Oh, I don't want to hire this person because this other person told me that this person is X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times with these professions or these jobs and these places here in California, they want, some of them want letters of recommendation. And if you've been working under somebody, they'll say that they want a working recommendation, somebody you worked with. And if that person you work with happens to be prejudiced or biased and it didn't work out, and let's say you put in some years there, now it ruins your chances of getting a quality recommendation because you can't trust that that person is going to be honest and tell the truth of who you are and what your character really is as a person. The other thing is that if someone calls the police on you and falsely accuses you of doing something, you could seriously lose your life. It's a possible chance that you could get a bad cop. He might have a bad day, or he might just maybe he doesn't like black people. He's racist, extremely racist. And it looks at it as an opportunity to say, well, I thought he had something in his backpack. And boom, he's dead. So I understand why that 9-year-old, if he doesn't want to accept that woman's apology, because you can seriously injure somebody, and it could be physical or it could be emotional. That incident that boy was feeling at the time when that woman called the police and was ranting and raving, he's a child. He's never going to forget that. And it's sad that he had to see it at such an early age, but there are a lot of black children who have seen some really horrible things done to their parents or done to them because of their skin color. And I'm just being straightforward and honest. And here in California, there are, and I'm going to be honest about this, there's some black people that are afraid to speak out on issues like this because they feel that it's going to be flipped around on them that they're racist. We are in California, and California has a large population of different ethnic backgrounds, and a lot of them are Latino people. And so what has happened to some black people, they have had hard times finding jobs. They have been ostracized not only by white people, but also by some Latino people and people that come from other countries that feel that they have something over black people who have been here all their lives. And I am being completely honest. And black people sometimes will face discrimination, not only with whites, but with Hispanics and Latinos, and sometimes even people from other places. And they could be sometimes a black person who claims they're something else. They don't want to call themselves black, even though they are a black person. They just were born in another country. And so the racism and the prejudice and the hatred and the bigotry is so bad that even black people that come from somewhere else don't want to be called black because of the negative connotation with it, because of what has happened here in America, in the States. And so there is culture fighting here. I don't know if it happens in other states. It probably does in other forms. But here in California, it happens a lot. Um, there's even been issues where there's been tensions between Blacks and Latin people. Some places it may be more prevalent, and then others times it's a mix of people who they share similar histories of being, racially discriminated, and they'll come together and they say, well, you're Black, or I'm Hispanic, or whatever. I've dealt with racism and you've dealt with racism, and I don't feel that I'm better than you are because I've experienced what you've experienced, only that I'm, Hispanic, or that I'm, a woman, or that has been mistreated, don't get paid fairly, or, I've been harassed, or something different about you, or something different. You could have a different belief. And I know some Black people, maybe there's some, not all, that may not want to accept this either. That sometimes you have to realize that everybody doesn't share the same beliefs. And so it's not only racism, but it can be discriminative, where we don't accept people who are Black that are gay. And so sometimes we'll mistreat and ostracize people who are gay. And we feel that is a good thing to do. And it doesn't make us any better by doing that. And that's probably another reason why it seems very counterproductive to ask people to be understanding about your circumstance when you can't be kind to others because they share a similar characteristics, but they have some other differences of beliefs or lifestyle. And so that makes it really hard. And the reason why I'm saying all this stuff and kind of letting it out is because I feel like people spend a lot of time and energy hurting each other. And it doesn't make people want to trust other people. No matter what you say, no matter what you claim that you're going to do, it's not about what you say. It's about how you show people. And when people are showing that they're prejudiced by building fences, building walls, abusing people, hurting people, beating people up, calling police on people just to be doing it because you're hoping that the police is trigger happy, making up stories that aren't really true just to see somebody lose their job or to not get a job, doesn't say very much about how people would feel in terms of trusting each other, that they would trust each other. It doesn't make people feel comforted that they can honestly trust you. And so that's, I think, the bigger issue as well, is that level of trust has kind of diminished. People do not trust one another. And also, even within your own cultures, you don't trust one another. And now you have all these subdivisions with politics, with religion, with lifestyles that people have that are different than yours. If you're traditional and this person isn't, and wealth and poverty. And so you have people, if they have a little bit more money than you, And we're living in this time now where you can be a black person, and if you have money, and a black person that has no money, some black people will look down on black people who don't have a whole lot of money. And it does happen. And it could mean you can't live in certain neighborhoods because you can't afford it. And so people look at you as lower than them because somehow they got lucky and they came into some money, or somehow they got a job, they got, you know, an opportunity to work somewhere where they can make a little bit more money than the next person, or they got an opportunity that someone else couldn't get, that they've been trying hard to get, and they just seem to never get there. And so that is the world we're living in. And it's sad because it doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. And I'm just being honest about this. I feel like that Mexican people want really bad to be viewed as white, and that there's some of them, I'm not saying every, that feel that they're better than black people because they don't look a certain way, or because they'll work longer hours and they'll put up with a lot of more crap and we won't, because we were born here and we know our rights, and we've already been through the song and dance of racism, and we kind of will tell you the rules of the land, that, you know, you can't make this person work this number of hours without having a break or without having a lunch break. And then you have people coming from somewhere else, and they think if they work long hours and work until their back snaps, that they're better than the person that chooses to fight for their 30-minute break. These are the kind of attitudes, these are the kind of things that have happened here, and just here in California. And, you know, you have people who think that if they look like they're not black, even though they're black, they can call themselves something else. You know, we have people that are black and they have like a parent that is white or a parent that is Hispanic, and because they look a particular way, that they're looked at as more desirable than one that has darker skin tone. And so we have people that have really serious, complex issues. And so it's more about what you do than what you say on paper. And so a lot of times when you come to places and you learn about the history of it, you learn that even though things are supposed to have changed, or they have written in a law that we no longer hold black people as slaves, you may not any longer hold people as slaves, like in bondage with chains and shackles, but mentally, the bondage is still there. Emotionally, the bondage is still there. Because if you can't live in certain neighborhoods because you're being priced out of the neighborhoods, you are discriminating and you're holding people back based on those issues. If you feel that you've got more money than these people and you can wall them out, then that shows that level of mentality that we still have prejudice and discrimination and bigotry still rampant all over America. And so if you feel that it's okay to make people feel that they should feel bad about their hair or their skin color because it looks different, or it's darker, or it doesn't look the same as what the stereotypes say that the standard set of beauty is in America, and you have been pushing that all over the place, then we have not really come that far. And I feel like if you always parade people around, you know, where now we're socially engineered to believe that black men look better with white women and something's wrong with black women, then we really have some serious issues. When the very women that you're parading them around on these commercials with are the women that don't hesitate to call the cops on people and get them arrested or get them shot and killed, that don't hesitate to call the police on 9-year-old children and accuse them of sexual assault when they never did it and could get them killed, that feel that it's okay to make women feel bad about how they look simply because their skin is of a darker complexion. And the standard set of beauty is supposed to be people with recessive traits, eye color, skin color, hair color, that's supposed to be viewed as beauty, and nobody else is beautiful but them, then we still are in bondage. We're still chained. We're still slaves. We're still shackled. It's emotional and it's mental, and it is draining, and it may be exhausting to some to hear that kind of talk, but that's what this America really is. When we can't face the fact that this country has an ugly history that never ever left. It's just been dressed up. It's just evolved. And now they want to make it law. It is. It's in laws. Laws to cover up what people really are is racist. They're prejudiced, they're discriminatory, and they're hateful, and they don't care about people. All they care about is self-gratification, and that's it. What they want. And a lot of black people who sit back and don't say anything and who allow this to go on and stay complicit with it, you're doing the wrong thing. You're just as bad as those whom you claim that are discriminating you and they're being horrible to you, but you sit back, you won't stand up, and you won't speak out on issues, not realizing there could be many black people who have experienced at that same job what you experienced. Your voice could be the voice that they've been waiting for so that they could come forward and they could speak out about what they experienced by that same individual that you were fired by, that you were sexually harassed by, that same individual that won't give you a letter of recommendation that's honest because you are black, or you are somebody they don't like because they're prejudiced against you for whatever the reasons. And so this is the kind of thing that America is built on. And I feel like it was being honest, saying the truth, and coming out and saying what really goes on, because people don't. And I feel like a lot of times people lie, and it's easy to lie. It's easier to lie than to be honest and hear the truth. So having said that, I'm going to end this video, but I don't really feel like people have learned their lesson. And the reason why these things keep going on is because we have people who refuse to get along. They refuse to admit that they dislike others because they don't have the money they have, or they don't look the way they look, or they don't have the same beliefs that they have. And that's the reason why we'll never, ever, as a country, move forward on any positive note if people can't learn how to accept people for who they are. Thanks for listening.